says setting up your meeting for Facebook
Meeting is now
Live.
streaming live. Do we see it? I don't see it yet. Do you see it? Oh, yeah, I see it. There we are.
All
All right.
right.
So we are on Facebook Live through Zoom, and you all have joined my group. Be glad, and I am so glad that you did. Because all of us on the group obviously want to be God-led and determined. So that's what we are here to do and to learn about. And so I want to thank you for becoming a part of my group. And so one of the things that you saw on there that I was sharing is about experiencing God. And so when you see God working, when you hear God moving, you have to act. You have to act out of obedience immediately. So God placed in my spirit to ask Kim to come on into our group, into my group. And so I asked her that same day, and she was like, sure. So we talked about it. We got all the details together when we would do it. And so I'm so glad that she said yes. And so I have with me Kimberlyn Jackson. Kim is my friend. She was my roommate from Fisk. She's my sorority sister. We are proud members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated Alpha Beta chapter.
Yeah.
And she is my sister in Christ. There's so much that I can tell you about Kim. A couple of things that I want to say about her is that she's an author. That's one of the reasons why we're on here today. She's a life coach. She's an educator and so much more. Kim, will you share with us some of the many jobs that you have?
And I do have so many. Oh my gosh. So I just want to thank you, Nicole, for reaching out. And, I definitely, when you talked about obedience, right? So I felt something in my spirit. I kind of almost teared up a little bit when you were talking about that, just in that mention. So I don't know what's about to happen, but I am glad to be here and just grateful for you giving me a chance to just come and chat and hang out. And as a byproduct of that, hopefully somebody will feel something in their spirit, get confirmation for something or what have you. So as Nicole said, my name is Kimberlyn Jackson, and I have known Nicole for a while. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Like, as I hear you go back, it's like, yes, we were roommates and like all of that. It's just so awesome. But so the many jobs that I have. So my 9 to 5, if you will, is as an educational consultant. And I actually just recently moved to Pennsylvania, and that's a part of, what I know we're going to talk about here today. And I currently work with the Pennsylvania Department of Education as a school climate and culture specialist. So that is my, 9 to 5-ish. I also have a consulting group called Black Brown Advocacy Group, where I empower educators to disrupt systemic racism within the educational spaces and confront implicit bias and have those courageous conversations that we often shy away from, and we see that people do that. I am also, yes, a life coach, and I actually work with women and helping them to discover their God-given purpose, which I know is something else that we'll be talking about. I am an author, I'm a blogger, I'm a talk show host. I operate on a platform called Beautiful Brown Girls, and we talk about all things brown girls related and all of the things that brown girls should care about. And then I also have another show called Brown Girl Boss, where I interview brown girl bosses and allow them to utilize our platform with Beautiful Brown Girls to really talk about the amazing things that they're doing in the world. I'm also an actor and a model, and
Beautiful model, yes.
yeah, and I also, this is the last thing I think, right? Because I think I'm on like thing number 9 now. But I also have a mentor group for adolescent girls where it's called Chosen Women. And one of the things that we do is to empower girls to love themselves and change their self-talk and really establish boundaries in their communication and really just get reconnected to their emotional spaces. As Black women, a lot of times we have to disconnect in order to survive. So we have targeted adolescent girls into helping them own their bodies and agency of themselves so that we can raise healthy healthy girls so we don't have to repair broken women. So I do that. And then I also, along with that, host adolescent retreats. So the girls get to kind of have an oasis away from all of the troubles of the world. So I'm done. I think that's it.
Okay, so I remember we talked one time about kind of what you just mentioned there about having your space. There are certain
Yeah.
spaces that you let people in and certain places
Hmm.
you don't let people in. Can you talk about that? How, who can come in and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and boundaries is something that's really, really big for me, and it's something that I talk about a lot. I didn't grow up with boundaries, right? So, in my family, it wasn't a thing. Like you couldn't say how you really felt. I often tell people that I used to have to be happy all the time. Even when I had a horrible day, I had to have a happy, story on my tongue because I wasn't allowed to have feelings, right? So as I've grown older, actually, the way I even came into the understanding about boundaries is my therapist recommended that I read the book. And the book, One DAE they should definitely like pay me for these endorsements because I'm always talking about this book because it changed my life. But it's called Boundaries, When to Say Yes and How to Say No by Townsend and Cloud. And my therapist was like, I really think you should read this book because you have this invisible sign over your head that says Kimberland will fix it. And I was like, girl, we got to turn that sign off. Like, oh my God. And when I went to her, I was telling her I was feeling very overwhelmed and I felt like I was drowning, right? Because so many things were going on in my brain and I just felt like I was trying to stay afloat. So, I know that it was a God ordained appointment for her to tell me to read the book. So I read the book and just really got an understanding of what it means to set boundaries. So when you talk about letting people in and determining who you let in, I kind of think of it as like circles, right? So I have different layers of access to my life because, especially when we have a calling and when we have an assignment, people come to leech pieces of us away, right? So we have to be in the healthy space of protecting our peace. Right. So I, through this process, have really learned how to rely on my spirit of discernment and really pay attention to people's energy. Right. And I know that's kind of like a buzzword, right? Energies and all that kind of stuff right now, but it's so true because all of us have an energy, a vibe, a spirit, like however you want to call it. So I'm very sensitive to sensing people's spirits and ensuring that I don't allow somebody to come in too quickly so that they cause harm or damage to my emotional space or to my mental space or take advantage of me, right? So I'm a helper and I've been in a helping profession, since forever. So being in education, that's a helping profession. Being a life coach, that's a helping profession, right? And because of that, people are automatically drawn to me, and that's kind of how it is. I know you're in education as well,
Yes.
so so people like come to you and get,
Like
it's magnetic.
mama, mama.
Yes, yes. And it may be, kids, it may be colleagues, like it's just a thing that happens because of the type of spirit that we exude. So I've had to be very intentional about making sure that I don't just allow anybody into my space without properly vetting their intentions, right? And sometimes only time and space can give us the opportunity to sense someone's intentions. But this is a learned skill. Like I'm saying it like it's so easy, just like, oh yeah, you just, fill it out. But it's something that I really had to grow into, and pay attention to the red flags and the nuances of what people say and what they don't say that may cause, if you miss it, it may cause some damage that you really didn't intend. So I hope that answers your question. Like, but
Definitely answers my question. I like the illustration you gave one time before about it being like your house. So you have
yes,
some people you might meet at the mailbox. You can't come, even up to my house. You have some people we can stay on the front porch. You can't come in, okay? This is my boundary for you. And
yeah,
those people you can let come in the front room, the little pretty areas of your house, of your life, of your space. And then you have those people who, are really in your inner circle. Like
Yeah.
they can come into your bedroom, they can walk wherever they want to in your house,
Yeah.
but it's hard once they get in there to put them out. So that's why you
Yes.
have to make sure that they are the right person. You have vetted, like you said, to make sure that they should be in your space, in
Hmm.
that circle, in that boundary, because it's hard to put them out.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we oftentimes, especially when we didn't grow up with appropriate boundaries, I think the house analogy makes it so plain, right? Because you're not just letting some person in off the street into your bedroom.
Your
Like
door
that
is
is
not unlocked,
not.
it's locked.
Yes, they can't even come into the yard. Some of them you're like, excuse me, I don't know you like that, right? So we have to treat our lives and our spirits that same way. We don't just let anybody into our spirit and into those intimate places. You can't take your mask off, if you will, for everybody. You can't show everybody your most vulnerable parts because they don't necessarily mean you good, right? So it's important for us to have people kind of in these groups and categories, and everybody has a place, and it's no slight to that person. Just everybody can't be in the inner circle. Like everybody is not coming into my bedroom. Sorry, it's just not happening.
That's right. Okay, so another thing I know that you're very passionate about is walking in and living in your purpose.
Hmm.
And so, like you said before, it can be draining if there are other things pulling on you. So we have to be very careful about, knowing and identifying what our purpose is, and then
Yeah.
anything that does not lead us to that purpose, just, cut it off. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's so much easier said than
I
done.
know.
Um, it is a process, let me tell you. Even when I think about, like, for instance, when you asked me to do this, I was like, what am I going to share? Like, what of this journey do I really want to make plain for people? And I think this whole process for me has been, what year is this? 2020. So this may have been almost a 10-year process of me developing into the person that I am right now, where I can confidently say that I am very in tune with my purpose, right? And what I'm grateful for, let me say, I want to say a few things. So, one of the things that I want to say is that I believe that everything happens on purpose with purpose.
Right.
Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's something that we feel is going to break us, even when it's something that um, just why God did you allow this to happen, that eventually we will understand the larger purpose that it had within our lives. And I think if we can keep that frame, it makes it a little bit easier to walk through whatever things that God is trusting us with, right? So what I want to say, this is how I want to kind of tell you a story about how I came into my purpose, right? So I told you about my therapist. My therapist told me to read the book Boundaries, and it changed my life. But let's talk about what got me into therapy. So therapy wasn't a thing, right? Which in a lot of our homes, especially Black and brown people, that's just not something we do. We pray it away, and sometimes it goes away and sometimes it don't. But we are not necessarily in the habit of seeking out that additional layer of support. So what happened is I was in an abusive relationship, and we have never talked about this, Nicole. So here we are. So I was in an abusive relationship, and I was actually engaged. Um,
I had
and I
an idea, though, I
remember,
will tell you. I had an idea, but I
I'm
did.
sure, I'm sure. But we never like explicitly had this conversation, right? Which that's a part of the whole story. But at any rate, so I was in this relationship, and I was engaged. I wasn't happy about it, right? So I even remember when he asked me to marry him, I was just kind of like, okay, like just very devoid of the feelings, the butterflies, the like, all the things that they tell you you're supposed to experience on TV. I have none of that, right? And it was actually a horrible day. Like, it was on Christmas. It was a horrible day. He had mistreated me all day long. It was just not a good day. So at the end of the day, he asked me to marry him, and I was just kind of like, and it was in front of his family, a whole bunch of people, cameras out, like all the things. And I was just kind of like,
Okay.
Sure, right? But something in me said, do not walk down that aisle. Like, do not. I don't care if you told him yes or no. Do not walk down that aisle, right? So we wound up, we're together, whatever, and I'm stalling subconsciously. Like, I didn't realize at the time that I was stalling, but I was. So we went to, he was a preacher's kid actually, which made, like, added another layer of like, this is not supposed to happen. But at any rate, so we wound up going to this church, and the pastor said, I think that you all need to go to therapy. I think she was like, I want to do, your premarital counseling or what have you, but I think you all need to go to therapy individually, she said. So I was like, you know something? I've been needing to talk to somebody for a while, right? So I latched onto that, and I was just like, yes, that's what I'm gonna do. Yes, I'm gonna go to therapy. The second thing she said was, y'all need to stop having sex. And I was like,
How you know? Okay.
but yes, how do you know? But I was also like, this is my out. Like, this is it right here, right? So I was like, yes, let's stop having sex today. Done with that, right? Um, so what it allowed was for my mind to operate clearly, because I can't say before that my mind was operating clearly. That soul tie was definitely in effect, and was causing me to excuse a lot of things away, right? So okay, so yes, we're gonna stop having sex. Yes, I'm gonna go to therapy. So I get to therapy, and my therapist asks me, because I say, I'm engaged, and yeah, yeah. So she says, well, what do you want this to look like? And I was like, I don't know. So she says, okay. So she asked me this question, Nicole, no lie, for 2 years. What do you want this to look like? What do you need? Is what she would say. So finally, after like 2 years, I was like, I need peace. Right. I need peace. I just feel like I am just in so much turmoil, and I just need peace. So she said, okay. So she said, I want you to do something. I want you to take a spiritual gifts test. Do you know your spiritual gifts? And I was like, yeah, somebody told me I, probably have wisdom or something. I don't know. So she's like, I want you to take a spiritual gifts test. So I said, okay. So I take this spiritual gifts test, and one of my spiritual gifts came back. As prophecy. And I had heard, like I've been, in church and Christian spaces since preschool. So I had heard a prophecy, but my Isaiah prophecy was like, somebody coming in and they got the, and all the theatrics of the prophecy. So I was like, really? So what it caused me to do was to really dive into what that meant. Mm-hmm. So I started doing some research about my spiritual gifts, which led me to doing research about fivefold ministry giftings, right? And understanding the difference between the gift of prophecy and being a prophet, right? So I did that research, and then I was like, oh, I wonder, how these things layer on top of each other. And then as I'm looking at all these assessments, something says, well, what about like your personality? Like, what's your personality type? So I started doing that assessment, right? And out of this process of me being in this abusive relationship, me being called out on stop having sex, you need to go to therapy, me getting to therapy, birthed my life coach program. Okay. So my program is all about the process that I went through personally to figure out God's purpose for me. So it was, I didn't know, right, what was happening at the time. I was just trying to heal and be better. But it was bigger than me, right? And that's why I say that everything happens on purpose with purpose. I couldn't see when I was in the midst of that how God would use that later on to help so many women. But that's why he trusted me with that, so that I was able to create this curriculum and really just help other women who are in abusive relationships, and not just other women, but also people who are friends of people who are in abusive relationships, because that is a very hard line to walk, right? So as you just told me, you were like, I had an idea, but we never talked about it, right? So as somebody who was in an abusive relationship, I felt like I can only say so much because I already feel stupid enough myself, right? So I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be made to feel even dumber than I already feel. So let me just not say anything, right? So it just caused me to turn inward. And I think what my friends, I later grew to discover what my friends thought they were doing to help was actually hurting, because all I really needed to hear is that I was worth it and that they loved me. That was it. I don't need your judgment. I don't need your advice. I don't need any of that. I just need to know that when I'm ready, that you'll be here and that you love me. So that's a part of what I do as well, is talk to people who are walking alongside people who are in abusive relationships, and really helping them to understand nothing you're going to say today is going to make a difference. Like, it's not. It's all about planting seeds and being supportive, but that's so hard when you're outside of the situation, and it makes so much sense to you, like, girl, just get up and leave. It's not that simple at all, and no woman or man, no person has grown up and said, when I grow up, I think I want to be abused. I think, I think that's my life's goal. Like, nobody sees themselves in this situation. So it's always a very big thing to kind of wrap your mind around. How did I get here? How did I even, like, me of all people, like, how did I wind up in this situation? And then forgiving yourself for that, and allowing God to do the work to repair your heart, to bring you peace, and really speak those words to you of how he created you. So in my process, what I discovered is that things about myself that I thought were flaws were actually unique designs. Right. So, like, me, I am super, like, black and white, like, I'm about to give it to you like it is, like, all of that kind of stuff. I say what it is, and it just kind of is what it is. Well, what I discovered is that is a characteristic of a prophet. Prophets are sent into spaces to speak what saith the Lord, whether that be a good thing or a bad thing, right? And there is no gray space in that. So when I discovered that, I was like, oh, this is why I'm like this, right? Oh my God. And it gave me so much peace, because it reminded me that I'm not a mistake. Like, I'm not an accident. Like, this is a unique design that God said, you know what, Kimberly?
That's what I got for her.
That's what she gonna do, because I know that she's gonna honor that, right? But then along with that, I also had to learn how not to misuse my gift. So the process that I went through allowed me to examine grace and mercy. I remember when I took my first spiritual gifts test, like, grace and mercy was at the bottom, girl. It was like -7. Okay, if it could be negative, like, ain't no grace and mercy up in this piece at all. So going through this process allowed me to extend grace, right? So first I had to extend it to myself, because I had to forgive myself for the things that I chose to walk through and continue to stay in. So, and then I granted myself grace to be okay in that, and know that it's all good and it was all in purpose. So that allowed me then to grant other people grace. So now it's not so cutthroat, you're going to get it how I give it out. Now it is tempering that with the fruits of the spirit.
Okay.
Right. And allowing that kindness and that patience to resonate, and understanding that everybody has a process and everybody is going through their process, and giving people the grace and space to go through their process just like I had it.
Yes. All right. So I want you
That
to
was a lot, right?
Yeah. Perfect. I want you to talk for a minute about your book and how it came to be, and co-authoring and all of that. And what does the, day mean? Why is it one day? Like,
Yeah, so my book is called One Day at a Time. And I think I actually might be able to share a picture of my book here. So there we go. Y'all, look at me with the things. So it's called One Day at a Time, and it is a devotional project. So it's over 400 pages of daily devotionals. And the way I even found out about this is nuts, because it's not something I was looking for, but it was something that God was telling me me I was going to do, of telling a piece of my story. So that's what this book afforded me the opportunity to do. And so one day, the DAE, it stands for Declarations, Affirmations, and Encouragement. So every single day that's in the devotional has those three pieces where there's a declaration. I am enough. Let's just say that, right? I am enough. And then an affirmation for you to affirm who you are in God, and what that looks like. And then an actual encouragement. So there are quite a few co authors that came together to create this project. And it's just really been an opportunity to reaffirm that everything happens on purpose with purpose. Everything is really about God's perfect plan and God's perfect timing, even when it doesn't feel good. So this has it's been refreshing, and it's almost been a weight lifted off, right? Because I feel like when we take our power back and we tell our own story, that it allows for God to do what he wants to do and for God to get the glory, as opposed to being something that somebody can hold over your head and make you feel some type of way about what you've gone through. So it's been refreshing, and it's been a burden lifted, because I'm really able to own it and tell my story and encourage other women and give them the opportunity to say, wow, okay, I'm gonna be all right. Like, I'm gonna get through this. I can smile on the other side of this. I can find the purpose within this process. So,
Yeah, I was really glad when you put it out there because I've been looking for a good devotion. I was like, I want it today. Yes, right now, right now. And so you sent it. I said, I'm getting it now. So I did. I was like, I won't take my address. You said, "Oh, let me fix it." So we got it fixed. So I
yeah.
cannot wait to get my devotional and get it started. So I want to thank you, for coming on with me. And when you mentioned God's time, and that's just what my whole thing for like the past couple of months has been, God's
Hmm.
timing. And so, it was God's timing for all of this. And I'm just
Absolutely.
grateful that, we can all be a part of his plan. Is there anything else you
Amen.
want to say to us before we go?
Yeah, definitely just want everyone to give themselves grace. Like, just really do an inventory of where you are and allow that quiet time for God to speak to you and encourage your spirit. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in all of the noise and the stuff that's happening, but really take the time to allow God to talk to you and to speak to your heart, and forgive yourself for whatever it is that you feel made you not be wherever you thought you were supposed to be right now, right? And trust that God knows what he's doing. He always has a plan. He's always in control. Like, he did not forget about you. Everything is on purpose with purpose. So definitely hope y'all check out the book. You can go to my website, kimberlynjackson.com, and you can find the book there, and you can also check out some of the other things that I do in me and my 20, 50, 11 jobs. um, and I would love to connect. I'm in the group, so definitely let's engage and let's talk and keep the conversation going, because this is something that we need. I think we need the opportunity to really be able to have a non-judgmental space and just be, so yeah.
Yes, thank you, Kim. So bye, ladies. I know you're gonna watch it and be blessed by something she did because she was amazing. Thank you,
Thank
Kim.
you. Thank you. Good night,
Good
ladies.
night.